We're all PSY-OP POWs. At least anyone you'd be allowed to hear about on this platform. One way or another, we're all just prisoners here of the psyops of war and fear, tyranny or forced illness. It's not our own, but the archon false selves device. Or simply prisoners of ego. Cluster B indentured servants to death. There may be exceptions, but they're rare. Bodhisattvas pretending to be financial slaves, or enlightened beings forced to be salesmen, or, of course, those who figured out how to live their dream and serve others something good and fit in with capitalism are still under the yoke of the money. Unless you want to spend all day hunting and fishing or trapping animals or gardening just to survive. And what happens if you build an intentional community and do it collectively? We will infiltrate you with inverted dogma or a narcissist, right? Most folks pay to exist on a plane net or snow globe, a realm where they were born. The rent, taxes, mortgages, the so-called cost of living keeps skyrocketing. You were born into a flesh suit that is highly needy in a place where just about all of our needs have been rendered, most often weaponized against us in every conceivable way we could nearly possibly conceive. We know that we are all, or most of us are all, PSY-OP POWs by seeing what we are forced to do and think. That's why I didn't have a fucking microwave cell phone for 20 years, because I knew there's something wrong with being forced to microwave my head. And all of our needs will be weaponized against us, most especially if we don't look carefully and read the labels. Discern and do our best to get and be free, because you know the devil's in those details if you don't look. But worse if we do. The chains aren't just a massive species-wide financial theft operation backed by armed thugs who will throw you out, kick you to the curb with your stuff, or steal it or repurpose it if you haven't paid. They're made of the demiurgic capitalism's bludgeoning through beliefs in coercive collective majority. Mob rule, fascism, we ignorantly call democracy or democratic capitalism. But remember, you are the prisoner and the warden with the key in your hand, psychologically speaking. If only you and I can do the extremely arduous and painful inner work to recognize the holographic nature of this prison. But yeah, it's really fucking tricky when the vast majority, 999.99999999999, almost every person is doing this same thing, coerced and trauma bonded into perpetual slavery. You must do what, quote, everybody else does, or you will be punished one way or another. My mom went to college partially to get a good paying job, but she told me if I had to, I'd do any job for money. This is the mind state. This is the statement of a financial slave or someone trauma bonded and yoked to the devil and their money magic, black magic matrix financial system. If you don't do what everybody else does in that system, you will be punished one way or another. Those who don't pay the insane rents and aren't stark raving loony, we're told by the mainstream media, must face those horrific modern concentration camps we call FEMA camps, ICE detention facilities, and, you know, whether they're watered down from what they did in Nazi Germany or not watered down, well, they must be somewhat watered down. Psychically, it's the same intention. Supposedly, all gypsies or folks who exist such as I have here will eventually be hunted down and physically imprisoned or rehabilitated. Even the former Harvard professor of psychology, the rock star psychologist the Tiny Hats helped to build a big following, Jordan Peterson, was assigned a forced re-education indoctrination center class if he ever wants to teach in university again for simply questioning the 99 different genders that the Canada university system insisted professors must honor unquestioningly. Yeah, they told him if you want to teach again, you can teach again if you go to the re-education classes. The false self-imposter god Yaldabaoth and his vampire 1% criminal, soulless underlings are now in their mind and the minds of the vast freaking majority fully in charge here, and they say we will all pay for being here in this hijacked place. Everyone's going to pay rent, even people who got food stamps. If you're not disabled, have to work 20 hours a week starting June. Imagine if you're staying in a tent with no water and Donald J. Trump says you're still going to have to work for your food. A person born with a silver spoon in their mouth, whose parents gave them millions to start out with. A landlord president who sits on a golden toilet has now made a law that every person that's so hard up that has to get the government to buy their meals has to work for that. In 2020 and 2021, of course, we saw the vicious face of the scum boy at the top, the devil. We saw the demiurge's head popped out of his bag, the big pussy worm with drooling fangs, the big bad lion of hell who controls hell, just brazenly stuck his head up out of the bag and said, "Here I am, the big cat of hell, to take it all openly by force." And of course, fear and terrorizing you into compliance by threatening to take away your job and your ability to go to college and any school. Openly removing your ability to hug someone if you're obedient. We saw this hellcat head popping out of the bag, loading up and binging on the loose farm, on the loose from the prolific, full spectrum, fear-based mass formation psychosis, as Dr. Robert Malone called it, of the international planned demon icky takeover operations. Since most were already trauma bonded and terrorized by their compliance. Since financial slavery or Abrahamic inversion of the divinity cults already demiurgically govern them. Ugh. It worked quite well to psychically, permanently lock down, if not maim, kill, or terrorize to death the last vestiges of free will, if it's not connected to making lots of money in over half the realm. Yes, since the USA became a corporation called the U.S., like former President Barack Obama said, the truth about freedom in the U.S. is, if you're an immigrant from a poor country, from some foreign country, far-fledged, far-flung, desperate corner of the realm, you're welcome to move to USA if you want to strike it rich. If you want to join your big club, you're welcome to work your ass off and try. Otherwise, what free will? And even if you have it, or you persistently, stubbornly maintain your ability to exist in the way I have here, how do you have a friend? How do you connect with people when the systems itself are controlled by the money monsters? Yeah. Over half this realm, half the realm who took the Humans 2.0 cyborg remote control slave experiment. Oh, they can have free will on their 5 minutes off a week, but their ability to discern and have critical independent thinking is gone. So what good is that 5 minutes? But this has been slowly escalating like the boiling frogs in the pot analogy for roughly 1 million years. Since Lucifer 4's original rebellion. Or They pushed us into a cube corner with ever-escalating ultimatums since, as the devils and their robber baron, helite, obedient, soulless, moral coward, billionaire, thug followers insist everyone has to be a part of our tyranny. Everyone has to be eaten by the loose farm. And as I said before, their greatest strength is no longer in pretending that they don't exist, but that they are so well organized and never give up. So we must never give up on the goal of freedom, liberation, truth, enlightenment, becoming our real selves. And if we really have collective courage to rebuild communities that aren't in the PSY-OP, prisoners of war in a PSY-OP. But how much easier is it to say it than to do it when they're such masters of infiltration too? Our once and now most latently hidden or demoted divine species, the Christos humans that have had the divinity beaten and shot and tortured and extracted out of them in hundreds of different operational ways that worked. Not only had our wings removed, our DNA unplugged, and rendered so-called by the scientism death cult, oh, that's just junk you don't use, that's just junk. Christ Sophia does not make junk. But the devil can't make anything that doesn't have planned obsolescence, falling down, loose extraction. Why did they have to suicide that guy who was a retired safety inspector at Boeing in the middle of his trial where he was exposing how they used bar soap on the joints and how shoddy the workmanship was? And that's in nearly every commercial airplane, because that's like they love to do in our country and around the world. One company, one bus company, Greyhound, one train company, Amtrak, one plane manufacturer, Boeing. If there was a real free market capitalism and it wasn't crony, monopoly, tyranny capitalism, plutocracy and technocracy, then you might find that capitalism wasn't a filthy, evil piece of shit that had to enslave you. Say you want to buy an eighth of ganja in the town of Capitola. Just right down 41st Avenue, you've got 3, maybe 4 different spots where you could buy an eighth of ganja for $10. Why is the cannabis $10 an eighth there? They had to, because they have capitalistic competition. But in incredibly insane monopoly, demiurgic capitalist enslavement, the price of rent and gas, the price of long distance travel has to be competitive and escalating, and everything has to be inflated and growing and inflated and growing, and financial slavery has to be inflated and growing and inflated and growing. Because in this town and every other town that's desirable, the invisible hand of the market, whose hand is that? It's the fucking devil's hand, gets to say what you're gonna pay, and there's nothing we can do about it. if you ask society, because the secret societies, the control groups, they all agree, and this nation with its moon in Aquarius is so fucking inverted that the secret clubs can just all agree. Ain't it great? We live in a dualistic society where we can do whatever we want and rule over those others, our goyim, our cattle, and they have to just keep paying more and more and more. Yeah, it's so real. About as real as all the black magic rituals it took to maintain the perception that it's real. About as real as the torture and the killing sprees and endless war and suffering that it took to dumb us down, to physically and psychically whip us all into compliance, or intimidate us enough to make us into hermits. Yeah. It was all done under duress. As long as we agree to play by the rules that are given to us by our off-planet, interdimensional, parasite, psychic masters, it's all going to be that we are all psychological prisoners of war under duress, because that's what's happened to our planet, our whatever shape it is. Our beautiful home here has been turned into a prison work farm. So even if you don't have to physically slave, you're going to be more than likely a psychic POW with complex traumatic stress, because that's the human condition, particularly in the last 6 years. And it's been slowly escalating like boiling frogs in a pot for roughly 1 million years. Our false self, junior gods, have rendered so-called, they've taken millions and millions of Jews, Catholics, Christians, and Muslims, terrified by their masters after all the rampant black magic rituals, beginning with when Yahweh tortured the Jews, dragging them through the desert, whenever that was, and before that even, all the adrenochrome, all the horrific things done to children, all the killings and other blood and human extractions, and their vast trauma bonds and Stockholm Syndrome. They got down on their knees and worshipped, then emulated, obediently became praying prey to our hideously violent evil captors who said, "I am a God of love. Now get back to suffering. I am a jealous God because I consider all of you my eatable objects. Now get back to suffering. You're here for me because I control everything. And as long as you believe that, then you're going to be probably a financial and a psychic slave. But if you don't believe it, how are you not a POW? Because every community formed in opposition or freedom, what happens to them? I mean, Brave and Free has just only been together a couple years, and it meets one day a month. Well, because they're trying to do it from within the crazy Santa Cruz economy. So, yeah, peripherally, a club like this that meets one day a month, or a video series like this that has, behemoth sensor controllers to make sure it only is seen by a few, yeah, you might be able to get in a word in edgewise to 0.01% of the humans. But that doesn't change the fact that this whole realm and just about everyone's psyche has been turned into a hell realm war video game in 3D. Coerced and terrified into compliance, and those following the Abrahamic faiths are ready, willing, and able to run endless holy wars, sacred bloody jihad, never even noticing war is anti-life. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. War is against us and simply for them. Our vampire father gods like Kronos. Financial slavery is his war. It's his ability to destroy social connection, community, friendships, and partnerships that are not commercial. And that is certainly what gave me the idea to make this talk. Was that, why is it that psychologically, especially since the last 5 years, everyone seems to be psychically imprisoned, even if they didn't take the experiment? It's because that experiment intentionally destroyed many economies and small businesses and drove up the fake-ass cost of living for the goyim. It drove up the psychic POW nature of most humans. It worked like a fucking charm to psychically cage us all, for the most part, even more. The fake vampire father god Kronos, the imposter, stole it all by force, by vast organization, threat, and coercion. A tactic our U.S. military used to take over the good-natured savages of Turtle Island, Hawaii, and the Philippines, lying to them, getting them to sign treaties and agreements in which our government lied and then terrorized or violently, killed them or threatened them and took it all. Instead of honoring their word, just, terrorized and took, which is exactly what the fake gods have done with the whole place. Like the victims of the 2020 operations who could not conceive humans could be so manipulative and evil. Just like the ancient Namulu Christos human race, they were loving, good, naive, and trusting. Maybe they didn't know anything about the black magicians who ran the media that they thought was honest, stupidly. They were loving, good, naive, and trusting, never even considering such filthy mental trash, such satanic hubris and violence could dominate humans till it was too late. Will it be too late for me and you? Are we going to stay psychic POWs in an imprisoned planet? Or will we have the extreme courage to do something else? We have 7.5 months till the forced central bank digital currency of USA stablecoin to keep all the goyim in the stable. Today my spike proteins were hanging on to my deuce, and it felt like a brick that wouldn't drop. Like I would be constipated on some occasion besides when I was in that ER for breaking 15 bones. You can't eat as healthy as a diet as I have and have that problem. However, the reason why I have to eat such a healthy diet is because of mutations in my bowels. And I am certain this was because of geoengineering. I had to take a nattokinase to have a bowel movement this morning. The coffee didn't work, because the sprays crowded my bowels with spike proteins growing into my cancers. Geoengineering is a horrific prison for all surface life here. Let's face it, that's what it is. Even if you were somehow miraculously not a psychic POW, I feel like geoengineering imprisons all surface level life to one degree or another, whether it's exasperating your illness, destroying your mood, making it so your bodily systems don't function very well, or if you have illness at all. Yet, yes, geoengineering intentionally exasperates all illnesses, external and some of the internal ones, in a tent. I am breathing and growing sickness all night. Yes, I have to quit doing this. It's masochistic and stupid for this very reason. I know it's hypocritical of me to be aware of it, and maybe it's the, destroying the unhealthy side of the Pisces moon, Pisces rising aspects in my personality, my shadow side. Of course, to live at all, you are imprisoned in flesh and must consume food, including animal cholesterol, to keep it healthy. Harmless, respectful entrepreneurial capitalism. Being a capitalist who's selling things to help to heal the world, tell the truth, or bring about folks' physical, mental, or spiritual, psychological health. It's not reinventing the wheel. But a lot of people feel that, hey, I'm not a psychic POW because I'm a real good salesman. But hey, you're still yoked to the money, and most of these folks don't want to have anything at all to do with me because I'm not selling it. So it's still divisive in the awakening. It's still a psychic capture because they're forced to be concerned with popularity and money. What is the way out of the PSY-OP and nanotech prison? Insistently learn to reduce the loose. Do your best to be as harmless as you can and reduce the harm you put yourself through. when you see a system or a situation or a moment or a personal psychological argument coming on, is only simply there to steal and destroy or pervert your energy or lower your frequency and drain you dry, just say, no, Archon Scuzzball, I'm not going to feed this fight that doesn't need to exist. Just because you tried to and successfully turn this mostly into a fucking loose farm doesn't mean that I have to participate in it. Eventually, we must shut the loose farm down, shut her down. Thus, the loose farm can and must be emptied. If we really need government at all, and cannot all become anarchists, we must become libertarians or some other person belief or be truth structure that believes in extremely minimal government at all, if any at all. Recognize the mainstream media is your enemy. And in the tyranny, somehow, ideally, peacefully, at least in your mind, in awareness, the devil has no power. So read the details. Read the ingredients list on what you eat. Read the details on what you think. Recognize legal theft is not legitimate. So do not comply or break the law as much as possible. There's a guy named Luke the Digital Nomad, I think that's the name of his YouTube handle, who's trying to, he said, the system doesn't work for me, so my philosophy is to start my own. And he's buying land for people who live in their vans and RV where they can legally stay, whether it's for nominal amounts of cash, work, trade, or maybe for free, and building an alternative community to slavery and disgusting tyrants in charge of it. But how can you escape your psychological operative prison? In this war or asymmetrical battle now? Well, become aware. Don't do as I do as I say. You must, in other words, don't stay in a fucking tent, or it could be bad. You know? You must insulate from the aerosolized aluminum dust full of self-replicating nanotech and graphene dioxide colonies in the cloud of geoengineering the roof of the prison. If we can't all do what the state of Tennessee and Florida did and make it illegal, and no one can do is enforce those laws. Until we can enforce those fucking laws, you know, or shut down the whole geoengineering program. If you want to be healthy, you're probably going to need to stay insulated from this filth at night. Insulate your mind from the devil's lies. Don't go to a place where people are openly obedient to their terrorizing ET or interdimensional parasite false gods, or limit your contact with those people. Stay away from those on the cluster B personality disorder spectrum, or psychopath, narcissist, and borderlines who want to terrorize you with their drama and their often incredibly childish, pathetic amount of sucking your energy dry with no empathy at all. Cut ties with narcissists. Escape the cluster B psychological prison it really is. Don't work with these people. Get another job. Get another landlord. Get another roommate. Stay away from them. If you have to stay in that job or in that rental, make sure you do your best to stay away from them. Don't respond to their provocations when they act like a fucking jackass, when they turn into a 2-year-old to try to upset you. Just let it blow off. Do the inner work. Guerilla garden. Face the fact that high rent is overt slavery. Stop thinking truth-telling is a competition, to all you YouTubers, cross-watchers who might watch this looking for ideas or for whatever reason you would watch it. Invite me on your podcast if you're one of these capitalist truthers who can only have people on who sell books, only have people on who are making money. Have the courage to go outside of that fucking noose. Truth-telling is only a competition according to the fucking algorithm. In reality, it's not. Eat organic, balanced food in proper quantities. Never eat refined sugars or chemicals. Learn to respect your mind and take it back from the false self. Derogatory, archonic, filthy introjects that constantly beam in telling you to harm yourself or others. It's not you. For once and for all, learn to practice the deep discernment that shuts down that part of the prison, at least on most of your days. Organize a peaceful revolt through building intentional communities or parallel societies. And keep them small if you must, because you know that the larger they get, the more of a chance the invaders are going to move in to ruin it, like Sheila and Osho. There was this guy named Andrew Yang who ran for president of the U.S. under the idea that he was going to give every poor person the equivalent of a welfare check, $1,000 a month or whatever. Of course he was defeated, and of course our big boys would never allow him to become president. Compare that to what happened in Saudi Arabia under Gaddafi. Gaddafi was like a California socialist if they were really actually spiritual. And sure, they had some kind of bloody war to establish their nation, but once he had established it, he shared the oil reserves with the whole country, from what I hear of my historical studies. And I know someone who saw the dinars, their dollar was called the dinar, and he said it was really beautiful. There was actually physically $1 worth of gold in the dollar. It was not only a gold-backed dollar, it was gold in the dollar. And basically that whole country, before a French assassin of the M1, the CIA of France, killed him, the whole fucking country lived like a country club. But the archons and the robber barons, they hated that. They hated having an example of something that wasn't a fucking endless war, prison war camp of endless slavery. They couldn't have it. Michael Tellinger's One Small Towns initiative came up with a perfect plan to create independent small towns where he says all of your needs will be taken care of if you agree. Every citizen would be forced to work 2 hours a week. 2 hours a week, manual labor in the garden or cleaning or whatever, and that would take care of all your food, all your rent, or you don't have rent, but the cost of keeping the buildings. And what's happened with that? It's a great plan. They've started one to small towns around the world, but they get struck with investors who are greedy. He finds that capitalism constantly, the invisible hand of the market that has the devil's hand in it, constantly tries to destroy the one small town movement, constantly gets in the way and interferes with it. Because again, they can't have it. You might be courageous enough to create an alternative, but as long as the vast majority think financial slavery and jihad and your Bible gods are authorities over their lives, then nothing is going to change collectively for our species. Because those violent authorities are going to not allow anything else to exist. Conversely, obviously, a lot of hippie communes were too lazy, too infiltrated by LSD to do anything. So they broke up pretty quickly. Know that the soulless demiurge has successfully, this vampire has imprisoned us all through war, economics, and lastly, mental and physical dis-ease. Learn to discern. Get aware. Reclaim some ease. Do some pranayama. Try to spend at least a half hour a week in a timeless space with no clock, no stupid shit. Relax in the desert, by the lake, by the ocean, in the mountains, or wherever the nature is near you. Take some moments back out of this status of being forced to be a psychic POW on a loose farm if you're not a fucking slave. Occupy a freed place. There's a reason why the YIMBY movement of 2008 had to be rapidly forgotten. Because YIMBY is something else. Outside of the system of being forced to be a prisoner or a psychological POW. Because the devil says, pow to everyone, pow to you, pow to me. I insist, everyone here must be a pow. If it's up to Satan, everyone's a pow. What else can you do? Get early morning sun. Remember who you are through the soul of Christ Helios when you can. If you're really courageous, take a home not by bloody force, like Yaldabaoth, the El, or the conquistadores, or more recently the U.S. military. Take it the way I got this place. Reclaim your mind, body, and land in peace, like I kind of inherited this camp intuitively after the man who kept it died, left his body. Learn the falsity of the pirate codes that pretend to rule and steal with black robe authority. Learn the truth about the legal system. Learn the difference about the pirate code. Learn what maritime admiralty laws are, and also original true laws, or what I call the original operating system created by Christ Sophia. Take no shit and give no shit. You know, which is now secularized into the non-aggression principle, which is you could do anything you want, just don't harm anyone else's stuff, or I would say their spirit. But it's very tricky to find a place that the government or some other agency or some other corporate thug or somebody, whoever, doesn't think they own, and they're going to throw you off or attack you for being on it. It's tricky. I know. Learn natural laws, original true laws of the land, the law of the land rather than the law of sea. Learn about allodial title and what that has to can you use that still? Learn lucid dreaming, remote viewing, natural healing. Do the shadow work and reclaim yourself. Because, for the most part, we are all just PSY-OP prisoners of war. If we don't, at least maybe 20% or more of the humans learn to actually practice freedom collectively, to individually throw off the shackles of trauma bonds to cluster B psychos and do the inner work to reclaim the real divinity, which can only really be experienced when you're relatively mostly harmless, when you're really in the image and actions of a real, actual divine being. If you haven't already and you watched this whole entire video, make sure you subscribe, follow me, give a thumbs up, let me know what you thought, and when you can, when your mind is, when the parasite archons of oblivion, inverted filth, are not so successful at making you a psychic prisoner, create a great one in those moments. Because truly, the original creator is great. And she can be great in you if only you're willing to do the arduous and really difficult work of getting your mind out of the complex PTSD of this system that really does a great job to make us all psychic prisoners, if not slaves.